Shuli's always there for me. I always write in the books that I wanted to write. And not only I don't type, so Shuli types every word, but she also signs off and gives insights and edits and ideas. Some of the best ideas are Shuli's, so I'm very grateful. So if you look at this is really for you, Jack. For the next session you give to consider opening up with this thought that in chapter 1, after Adam is created, the text says in sentence 28, Vayivarech otam Elohim, and God blessed them, referring to Adam and Eve. Vayomer lahem Elohim, and God said to them, chapter 1, sentence 28, Pru urvu, be fruitful and multiply, umilu et haaretz, and fill the earth, v'chivshuha. Now, chivshua comes from the word kavash, which means to subdue, conquer the earth. That's a pretty strong verb. Vayivarech otam Elohim, vayomer lahem Elohim. If you can show the sentence there, if you don't mind, Shuli. 28, Vayivarech otam Elohim. It's right there at the top, and God blessed them, Adam and Eve. Vayomer lahem Elohim, and God said to them, Peru urevu umil'u et haaretz, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, v'chivshua, and conquer it. Now, as we know, that creation story did not end well, according to the Bible. There are many such epics in other literature, the Gilgamesh epic, but the Torah is a learning tool. And so the Torah is offering a description, but it's a description whose goal is that we should glean from it lessons of life. And the earth is destroyed in the flood. And now Noah and his children are beginning anew. And as Noah leaves the ark, let's take a look at that sentence. That's in chapter 9. And there's something really extraordinary that happens. In sentence 7, God has to tell them, chapter 9, sentence 7, Va'atem, and you, God says to Noah and to his wife and to his sons and to their wives, Peru urevu. In fact, let's take it better yet, sentence 1. Vayivarech Elokim et Noach ve'et banav, and God blessed Noah and his children. Vayomer lahem, and he said to them, Peru urevu, be fruitful and multiply. I imagine they had to be pushed to bring children into the world. I've always felt that one of the greatest mitzvot that Jews who survived the Shoah that they observed is that they brought children into the world. They have every reason to think, if this is the world who needs it, why bring children into a world that saw the destruction and the annihilation that we experienced? So God pushes them and says, be fruitful and multiply. Let's begin again. This is what the Torah is about. Choose life, pru urivu, umil'u et haaretz, and fill the earth. Now, there's something remarkable in this sentence, which can be culled not from a word that is there, but from a deletion of the word. Now, listen closely to the phrase. God says to them, and there are 5 words here, Peru urivu. Peru is from perot, be fruitful. Revu, from rove, many. Be fruitful and multiply. Umil'u, and fill et haaretz, the earth. Now, this is not the first time in the Torah we have the phrase Peru urevu. In fact, we just read that phrase in the first creation story When Noah leaves, that's the second creation story. And in the first creation story, let's listen to the words. God says to Adam, Vayom Elohem Elohim. Certainly God is speaking the first time to Adam and Eve, the second time to Noah and his family. But these are the words. God says, let's go back to the Adam story, Piru Urivu Umil'u et haaretz v'chivshua. Here, the second time around, God says, Piru Urivu Umil'u et haaretz. But that last word has been dropped. Now that exegetically, that can't be a coincidence. It's the same phrase, Peru, Urivu, Umil'u, et haaretz. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And then that's what it says in both cases. But it's only in that first story of creation that we have that tag along but important word. And I would argue a word that could be misunderstood, v'chivshua. L'chbosh is a term which means to conquer and conquer the earth. And here in the second story, it's missing. God says, Pru urvu umilu et haaretz. There's no v'kivshua. So what I want to argue is, this is in Dr. Gorman's honor. I'd love to get your reaction, and then we'll go into what we want to talk about today. That the reason that word was dropped is because it was misunderstood. It was almost like misappropriated. It was supposed to be used. The Kivshua was supposed to be understood in a beautiful way, but it was misunderstood. And I've learned a long time ago that the speech that you give is not the one that you give. It's the one that people hear. And when Adam and Eve, who represents the nature of the human being, heard the Kivshua to subdue the earth, they took that to mean that we could do to the earth what we wish to do to the earth, that we have no responsibility to the beautiful, beautiful world that God created. And they ecologically, they abuse the world. So the second time around, God, recognizing that that was too quick a term to use, God drops that word.
Wow.
Pru urevu umilu et haaretz. There is no v'kivshua. And of course, there have been volumes written on the Jewish attitude towards the environment that, I mean, I was, so taken our dough with, as I mentioned, we were with over Shabbat, his wife's mother's sister, though, I guess that's her aunt, lives in Australia, and she has a doctorate in forestation and working with the Aborigines. And it's very, it's very uplifting. Most recently, a dear, dear friend of mine, Kenny Prager, who's the head pulmonologist at Columbia, also the head of the ethics committee. So he lost his wife, Jean, and I was in Israel, so couldn't be there with him. And I called him and I said, Kenny, I have no words, but I just want to share with you a thought right before the burial that the dirt that's going to cover Jeannie, try not to see it as dirt. See it as God's earth, God's, the soil, God's earth, the ultimate covering. And he always said to me that, and I think he mentioned it at the funeral, that just that understanding that it's God's gift, it's God's earth, looking out, seeing the beauty of the world every day is such a blessing. So that's comparing chapter 1, sentence 27 to chapter 9, sentence 1. It's I think it's a beautiful teaching. Beautiful teaching. So Ellen, how are you doing, Ellen? When
Good.
are you going? When are you going to Florida?
Oh, not until February. I'm not like Ruby. I can't be there for 3 months.
Wow, yeah. But you know, they
So
say talk about the
just
environment.
about the time I get sick of winter and horrible brown everywhere,
Right.
I go to Florida for 6 weeks.
Yes, I see. Tova, I was able to speak to Shoshana, so I'm happy about that and try to follow up. So it's good to see you, Tova. And Joyce, it's always good to see you. How are you feeling, Joyce?
Everyone is muted. I'm sorry if you're able to unmute.
And I see Linda. I call my Linda. How are you doing? How are you feeling? How's the family?
Everybody's good, thank you.
And Israel?
We're back from Israel. We got back last week, so recuperating.
Yeah, the jet lag is very hard.
It's very hard. We met someone in Israel who was in your class long ago at at Stern College. Her name was Renee Singer.
Yeah,
I don't know. She,
yes,
she said you probably don't remember her,
I do
but she's
remember
now a
her.
grandmother. She was in the
Right,
park with seven of her grandchildren. So, but she said to say hello to you if we speak to you. So,
right. Oh,
Hi,
those are.
hi, Avi. I have a visitor here from Israel,
Oh, wow. So
flight
who's
number
it?
one son
Boker
Wow.
and
Tov.
daughter.
How are things in Rehovot?
Rehova at the moment, I think it also was raining.
Well, that's good. It's good for Israel, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. We need it. It's been a tough half year, but we're fine.
Yeah. But nationally, on politically, or yeah.
Nationally, politically, also Rehovot, which is for some reason became a target, or the area around us for any number of reasons. So the lab where
Yes.
I was a student, gone.
The Weitzman. He meant
Weitzman.
Oh,
Weitzman.
that was
Direct
hit
hit.
by the Iranians.
Yeah, direct hit. And the area around also a lot of shock wave damage, like $500 million worth. Even
Oh,
friends of mine who live like across the street, their balcony, the whole doors were moved.
Mhm.
Yeah, but we cover. We know walls. No,
we had a safe room.
yeah,
Well,
All right, all right.
yeah. My mother was
Never mind.
visiting. No, it was fine. Otherwise, you know how it is. But
it's so good to
when I
hear your
came, yeah,
voice.
yeah, it's good. I came here to torture my mother.
Yeah, but thank God that
Yeah, things are fine.
the hostages are out, and hopefully the two remaining hostages that their bodies will be
I'm not
returned.
agreed. Yeah,
God
and
willing.
all the soldiers will be back home. I
Yeah,
gather that your grand kid saw some activity.
he did. We have
I goes.
our eldest grandson is in Miluim,
Uh,
but he's out of Gaza now, thank God, and he's told he won't have to return until August.
How nice.
But we have another who's in Sadir, who's
oh,
in on the yellow line in Gaza in Kfir, and we now
Kfir?
have Fear, and we have it
Yeah.
in what's called Haruv, and
Yeah, I know it.
we have another grandson who's going in this coming Sunday. He's enlisting. So
Shem Yishmor. But yeah.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that blessing. It means so much to me. They should all be safe. God willing. Arnie, you swept us away last week, Arnie. It
I'm
was
sorry, everyone needs. There you go.
Hi, Avi.
Arnie. You
My
were so
class was.
poetic last week. It was just beautiful, Arnie. And
Thank you.
I hope you get to Israel. I hope so. Elaine,
One
how
way
you
or another,
doing?
I will.
Elaine, are you on there? Are you on this week?
Um, I think Debbie and I are going to keep our hand in on the um, birthright tour. I don't know if we'll be able to do it or not, but for now, we're going to try.
So let me know when you're filling out the form, Arnie.
Okay.
Right,
And
but
if you need
please
anything, let
remind
me know.
me. Please remind me to try to see if I could help with that. That's always been a dream of mine that Arnie should go.
It's a dream of mine.
No, many of your friends have been dreaming with you that you go. You have a friend who was a doctorate, a very close friend. Do you remember his
Jeff.
name, Arnie?
Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff always said, we have to work towards that. That would be great. And I see Elaine. How are you, Elaine?
Sorry, you're muted again. I don't know why I'm hearing an echo. Is everyone
Yes,
else hearing an echo suddenly?
absolutely. Yeah, it's very distracting.
Yeah. Rabbi, do you think you can sign out and back in again? Do you
Sure.
mind?
I don't mind. Oh, says Shalom. I'm going out.
Come back though.
Okay.
Ended, Shuli. Now
Is
you
it
have to go and
is
end
it
it.
from him or something else or somebody's playing something? I don't know.
I muted everyone, so it shouldn't be
Oh,
anyone else.
But now it's ended, and
Yeah, now
ended
it's
now it's
before,
better. Now it's
over.
better.
but it
Okay.
Yeah.
ended right before he got off.
Yeah, he didn't actually get off. He just turned off his picture. So
Okay.
somehow
Well,
it's better. I don't know. But if everyone who's not speaking can keep themselves muted, because that's usually what it is.
okay. We're doing great.
Okay.
Beverly and Ted, I see you're on.
Yeah, there I see Ted, but Ted is also muted. Sorry about
Right.
that.
Right. And who else am I seeing?
You have Ruth Licht, you see Joan, you
Well, I want to
see
say, Ruth, it's so good to speak to you. And I always think of Dina. She should feel well. Everybody thinks of Dina, Ruth. Also, Elliot, he should be well. And I see Bob is on, and is Alan on? Bert's on, and I think Janet Shana Leah Batchan is on, who's one of the sweetest, kindest women. I always try to encourage her to participate, but she holds back. One day, the Lone Ranger will reveal his identity to Tonto. Anyway, there's so much to say about this week's portion. And again, if anyone does not have this set of commentary, we have, there was a fund and somebody actually contributed so that I'm proud to say I didn't sell um, whatever they call them, one group of these books, one set. But thank God we've given away quite a few. And if any of you want it, you just let us know, let Julie know, and it's our great pleasure. And what I'd like to do today from this week's portion is a very esoteric story, and it doesn't have to do with what's unfolding in Israel. There's so much in this week's portion that has a lot to do with that. It's the classic portion of Jacob and Esau wrestling with each other. And, there are some commentators who understand Jacob being wounded in the hollow of his thigh as a way of saying, Jacob, you're meeting your enemy. Unfortunately, it's your brother Esau, but Esau represents the enemy. One thing you shouldn't do when you meet your enemy is don't run. Don't run away. Stand strong. And that was the wounding of the thigh. The wounding of the thigh was to see, you see, Jacob, you can hardly walk. No more running. The more you run, the more you'll be overcome. But that's not where I'm going today. I'm going to a more esoteric, unknown story, and that is in chapter 35, whose subject matter is the birth of Benjamin. And we're told that Rachel dies in childbirth. And after she has a child, chapter 35, sentence 22, this is what the text says. The text says, and now I'm reading, Vayehi bishkon Yisrael ba'oretz hahi. Now, this was a very difficult time for Jacob. He had just lost Rachel. He had 4 wives. I'd like to look at Bilhah and Zilpah not as his handmaids. And I'm in good company because Nachmanides also refers to them often as Jacob's wives. Vayhi bishkon Yisrael, and when Israel lived, bishkon, when he lodged, ba'aretz hahi, in this land. Now look at this. This is really a painful sentence. Vayelech Reuven, and Reuven went. Now, who was Reuven? Reuven was the eldest son of Jacob, and he was the eldest of Leah. He was the oldest of all of them. So Reuven, the son of Leah, went. Vayishkav et Bilhah pilegesh aviv, and he lied, which is a way of saying that he had intimate sexual relations with Bilhah, the concubine of his father. Let's understand for a moment who Bilhah was. Rachel, for a moment, let's talk about Rachel and Leah. And to assist Leah, there was an Amah, there was a Pilegesh, and that Pilegesh of Leah, that Pilegesh of Leah was Zilpah, and Rachel had a Pilegesh by the name of Bilhah. So what did Reuven do? Vayishkav et Bilhah Pilegesh aviv, Vayishma Yisrael, and Israel heard about this. Now one thinks about this. How is it possible after Rachel dies that a son goes and has relations with his father's concubine? And why Bilhah? So I want to read to you from the Hertz commentary. This is what the Hertz commentary says. It was the practice among Eastern heirs apparent to take possession of their father's wives as an assertion of their right to succession. In other words, Reuven sees that Rachel has died. Life is moving on. This is the first of the parental figures who dies. And he understands that he's the next generation. And he would like to assure that he becomes what he believes will be the 4th patriarch. It wasn't then known that there would only be 3 patriarchs. To assert himself to become that 4th patriarch, he purposely goes and has relationships with his father's favorite wife. But his father's favorite wife had just died. Maybe that's how he realizes he's missing the opportunity. But since she died, the assumption is that Jacob became closest to Rachel's closest, and that is Bilhah. So he went and had relations with Bilhah, literally had relations with her. Why? Because such was the custom in the ancient world. A son would assert prominence that he was the next in line to step in for his father by having sexual relations with his father's wife. I'll read it again. It was the practice among Eastern heirs apparent to take possession of their father's wives as an assertion of their right to the succession. But then, of course, Hertz continues and says, but whatever the reason, the memory of this repulsive incident lingered in the patriarch's mind. I'm not yet up to what I just read now. Whatever was happening in that ancient world, this is repulsive to the Jewish world, even thousands of years ago. This is not something that I pray we did even then, when we, of course, I've gleaned so much from history, and I would hope that on some level our ethical sensibilities have improved. We see that. I mean, the Torah is a Torah that talks about genocidal war. That's so foreign to us. That's why Israel's army has purity of arms. The Torah talks about slavery. That's contrary to every principle of what Torah is all about. So one can argue that all the way back, sons, to assert their heirship, they would do this. But this is certainly something that is very disturbing, just as slavery and genocidal war. The rabbis, I struggle with it and how to understand it and fit this into a Torah, which is the Torah of God. What is that all about? It's something we've touched upon, and I think deserves much more consideration. But certainly this is not what we're all about. And that's why the text says, Vayelech Reuven, Vayishkav et Bilha Pilega Shaviv. I'm back to the sentence. Julie, Vayishma Yisrael, and Israel heard. Now, what's fascinating about this sentence is virtually every sentence in the without exception has what's called a sof pasuk, an end. The way you could see the end is it has two dots. So, for example, if you look at the next sentence, sentence 23, if you could see that, Vayiyu v'nei Yisrael shneim asar. Can you point to that, Julie? Because it's a little small here. Notice it has two dots at the end of the sentence. At the end of sentence 23, two dots at the end of the sentence. At the end of 24, two dots. At the end of 25, two dots. Now, let's go back to our sentence. And that's the way it is throughout the Torah. Reuven went and he lied with Bilhah, his father's concubine. Vayishma Yisrael, and Israel heard. It doesn't end. The sentence is left unfinished. And I would like to argue, and this is what I argue in Torah Ava, that this act of Reuven was alien to everything that Jacob represented. And so Jacob is outraged. He is so outraged that the sentence, the words describing his response, that sentence is left sounding incomplete. It's one of the very few times that this happens in the Torah. All the text says is Vayishma Yisrael, and Israel heard. Now, I want to say something else about this in a lesser known commentary called Bino Yaakov. He was a German Jewish commentator. He notes that whenever the Torah says or uses the word Shema, it always follows with what one hears. For example, the most famous Shema, Shema Yisrael, it doesn't stop. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Israel hear, and then it includes what you should hear. So one would think that when it says here, Vayishma Yisrael, it would delineate specifically what Israel, that is the new name, the second name of Jacob, what he hears. But Bino Yaakov, who lived in the beginning of the 19th century, he was a German Jewish commentator, he says that whenever the Torah uses the verb Shema without specifying what one hears, it indicates that he hears, but not truly listen. In other words, rejection. When it says that I hear you and there's no response, it's like someone talking, someone hears, but doesn't respond. How often does it happen in relationships that A speaks to B and B doesn't answer and A gets frustrated? How many times has Toby talked to me and My mind is on 100 different things, and you know the story I always tell about when I took Dina when she was a little girl to SAR. She maybe was 4 years old. In those days, I used to drive, and those days I used to think I was important, maybe impotent, but not important. And so my mind was on 100 different things, and she's blabbing away, and suddenly she says to me, Abba. I'm sorry, she said to me, Rabbi. And as soon as she said Rabbi, I pulled over the car because I became concerned. I said, Dina, I'm your father. Why did you call me Rabbi? She's given me permission to tell this story. It's one of my favorites. She said, Abba, I've been saying Father, Father, Father. Abba, I got no response. I said, Rabbi, I got a response. Good
Avi,
lesson.
we're slightly disagreeing with you. I'm sorry, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. Of course, I
Actually,
don't mind Estelle.
I don't know. My wife also is disagreeing. We're all listening here. My thought when he says the nishma, whatever, shema, the opposite, that there's no need to say anything over so, let's say, repulsive that you don't even have to go for another explanation. That we all heard, we know what happened, we'll deal with it, as opposed to having to go continue another further explanation. I take the
Yeah,
exact opposite track, or whatever the word would be in this
but you
case.
still go along with him.
No, I'm going. It's not the
All right,
opposite.
That Jacob didn't
He-
agree.
I agree that Jacob didn't agree.
Avi is lecturing.
Oh, sorry, no, I was just taking opposite.
oh, I don't
That
mind
there's
at
no
all.
necessary to even continue with it. It was so obvious, and
Yeah,
I would postulate that many times when repulsive things are said, or in the Torah, it's to bring out that this is what we don't want, and then obviously it's corrected later on.
yeah. I think I've not. I did not do Bino Jacob. I did not do him justice. That what he says is that whenever the text uses the verb like Shema without specifying what one hears, it indicates to hear, but not truly to listen. To listen. In other words, rejection. That principle is certainly true in a verse that doesn't end, illustrating, and this I think is your point, that Jacob is incensed
Right.
beyond description. No words can adequately express his feelings of outrage. That's
Exactly.
basically right. I had not explained it, and I had not explained it adequately. No words could explain
I
it.
think it's completely different.
My wife disagrees with me, but we'll continue
Right.
afterwards, I guess.
But I just want to add this, and then I really want to open this up, that I write in Torah Ava that there's another possibility that exists. And I noted that in the next sentence, it says the following. So sentence 22 says, Reuven went and he tragically does something terrible. He lies with Bilhah. Pilega Shaviv, he lies with one of his father's wives. Vayishma Yisrael, and Israel is outraged, but the sentence stopped. The Vayishma Yisrael explains that it was beyond words. He rejected it, but he didn't respond with words. Now the next sentence says, Vayihiyu b'nei Yaakov shnei masa, and the children of Jacob were 12.
They
And
actually
then
have that as part of the same pasuk.
it's a new pasuk. It's
Okay.
sentence. It should
The
be.
JPS online, they have it as the last part of 22. So I know sometimes Chumashim aren't the same on that. So I'm just, for people who are looking at the screen, 23 starts at B'nai Leah
Well,
on this one.
let's look in the Safari. I can't see it clearly.
Oh, I'm
Surely,
sorry. Let me
is
see
it
if I
the?
can make it bigger.
No, that's okay. But is it the same thing there?
Here they say V'yu b'nei Yaakov shnei masar is the end of Kaf Bet.
Okay, go on. And next,
And then it starts on 23, B'nai Leah, Bechor Yaakov Reuven, V'Shimon v'Levi v'Yehuda v'Yisachar u'Zevulun.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct. The previous sentence is sentence 22, but sentence 22 doesn't end. By Yishma Yisrael, they have two dots. It doesn't belong there. Those two dots
Right.
don't belong. Are there two dots there? I can't see.
Yes, yes. What I'm trying to say is V'yehi b'nei Yaakov Shnei Masar is the end of 22. It's still part of 22 on the screen. I'm just saying that's what people are seeing, whether that's an error or it's a difference of opinion.
And I think you're correct. So I stand corrected. But note that it comes after that pay. Do you see the pay?
We see the
There's like a
pay.
pay. There's like a pay in parenthesis.
Yeah, right here.
What that means is that when you look in the Torah, in the actual scroll, after it says Vayishma Yisrael, if there's a pay, it's called a Parsha Ptucha. No matter where Vayishma Yisrael ends in the script, even if it ends in the middle of the sentence, the next word will be on the next line. So even if it is the same sentence, I'm sorry, even if, yes, so even if it is in the same sentence, I think you're right. Still yet, there's something missing there. By Yishma Yisrael, it's like that sentence doesn't end. There's something elliptical there. There's something that's missing. And yes, it technically continues by going forward, but it doesn't end. It should have ended there. Am I making myself clear, or is that still unclear?
It's clear.
Yeah, but
I hope that's clear. That what we're trying to say is that the sentence is not ending up there. The fact that the next word begins on the next line tells the reader there's something strange that is going on here, even though technically it is in sentence 22. So technically it ends with two dots. Surely you're right. But still yet, it's a very strange presentation. I appreciate what you're saying, because if it was the normal thing, then Vayiyu v'nei Yaakov Shnei Masah should be on the same line. Why is there a pay there? Why is there a space between it? It says that something's happening there. And what I want to argue is the following. The possibility exists that, as I'm pointing out, that in the next sentence, the Torah states that Jacob had 12 sons. And you know what, Shuli? I think when we wrote the next sentence, that technically is wrong. We should have phrased it that in the next words, the Torah states, but the next words are on a different line, right? That Jacob, it was sort of like, it's sort of like, I'm going to act it out. Vayelech Ruvain, Vayishkav et Bilha Pilegesh Aviv, Vayishma Yisrael, Jacob heard it. Vayu v'nei Yaakov Shnei Masa. It's the same sentence, but there's a silence between them. And the silence is, you could see the silence in the fact that in the text, there's nothing there in the parchment. The words Vayishma Yisrael could be ending at the beginning of the line in the Torah text. But then you would think the next word would be the next word. No, it's like the text. This is a deeper way of even saying it. There is a text in which an idea is expressed through words, and this idea apparently is being expressed through silence. So I really appreciate what you said very, very much, because I think it sharpens the idea. It says that something is happening. He lies down with his father's wife, and Ruvain hears, and then nothing. And it's still a sentence. It's sort of like the sounds of silence. There's something in the silence. Something is happening. There's a message in the silence. Then it gives a sentence, and he had 12 sons. Now, what we were hearing before is that the reason why there is silence, it's sort of like he hears and it's silence because it shows he was outraged. There were no words that could be descriptive of how upset that he was. That's certainly one way to understand it. But there's another way to understand it, and this is the suggestion. Perhaps it underscores, now if we can go to Torah Tava, the bottom of 118 in Breshit, had Jacob verbally expressed his revulsion, because the question is, if he was so revolted by what had happened, why didn't he say so? So you could say it was beyond anything that he could say. He was so outraged. Okay, maybe that is the case. But we're also...
Maybe accepted. Maybe he accepted that.
Right. I'm saying, Tova, something very close to that. Perhaps it underscores that had Jacob, or maybe, Tova, maybe he accepted it and was outraged, but he chose not to talk about it at that moment. He chose when to be silent. Sometimes I think in life, we have to know when to talk. And sometimes I think we have to know when not to respond. Sometimes we have to know how to hold back and be silent. The way I put it is, perhaps it underscores that had Jacob verbally expressed his revulsion, let's assume for a moment, he hears about it, and what does he do? He runs into Reuven's room and says, "You son of a gun, you be, you this, you that." And he's outraged. He can't control his emotions. He's just so upset. Had that occurred, Reuben may have opted out, leaving Jacob without his eldest son, without 12 sons, but 11 sons. Because Jacob controlled himself, not saying a word, Reuben remained in the field. Jacob still had 12 sons. So what I'm arguing is that when it says that Reuben went and lied with Bilhah, the concubine of his father, and then it says, and Israel heard, and then suddenly the sentence is silent. Had he said something, the next words, or let me say in the most positive way, Vayishma Yisrael, and we have to assume that he was incensed, but he says nothing. And the next words were, and Jacob had 12 sons, which seems so unnecessary because we all know he had 12 sons. This is what the text is talking about.
Yes.
answering.
But what we're arguing is precisely because he was able to hold back, he still had 12 sons.
But maybe
Had
he was.
he said something at that point, as right as he was, as correct as he was, had he said something when he was so emotional, having lost it, he could have at that point lost his eldest son. His eldest son would have walked out. And even though he would have, maybe Jacob would have been right in what he said, but you have to know what to say, when to say, and when not to say. I always say when I'm talking to couples before they marry that the test of a marriage is you're able to take off masks. Like Toby tells me, come on, Avrami, take off your rabbi mask. You unveil masks. We all wear masks. That's why the Hebrew word chayim, I don't think there's a singular to life. We all have a certain duality in our lives, outside way, the inside way, and the struggle is that it be one way, that the outside and the inside be integrated. That's part of the challenge. That's part of the challenge of life. But the deeper the ability of a couple, of friends, of a parent and a child to speak to each other, the more you're able to reveal about the self, the deeper the relationship. That's what it means, I think, when in the Bible it says that Adam and Eve were naked in the Garden of Eden and they were not shamed. I don't think it means they were naked physically. That's simple stuff. They were naked in the sense that they were naked. They really were able to reveal their deepest emotions, their deepest feelings, their highs, their lows, their joys, their vulnerabilities. They were able, but in the same breath, I would say to couples, and I'm saying to myself, while it's true that the more you're able to reveal, the better off you are, sometimes you have to know the gift of silence. Sometimes you have to know
Yeah.
when not to speak.
Uh,
Sometimes it's important not only to reveal but to conceal, because if you're going to say something at that point, you can lose it all. You can lose it all. And that's the text. The text says here, he did this dastardly thing. Israel hears, but then in the text, you can see the silence. The text, it's wordless. There are no words. And then it suddenly says, and Jacob had 12 sons. Yeah.
But
The message is that he
I-
said something. Had he said something, he couldn't have said he had 12 sons. He would
Can
have
we
had
put
11.
up hands if we want to say something so we're not interrupting as I just did to Rav Avi?
No,
Thank you.
I think,
I'm just hearing Estelle and Tova at the same time, and
well,
we
I'll just
gotta
say,
go one at a time.
I'll just
Tova
say
was
one,
speaking already, so
I'll
let's
just say
continue with Tova.
one more
Over
sentence.
speaking.
Just one more sentence, and then I'm stopping. It may be that Yaakov doesn't immediately react because he fears that if he does immediately react, he will forever sever his relationship with his eldest son. By the way, that doesn't mean that he didn't ultimately tell him what he felt. The truth of the matter is that on his deathbed, when he was giving blessings, many years later, he tells Reuven something very, very hard. He tells him, you have forfeited the birthright because of what you did, your relations with
Bila.
And then that's a good point.
what I'm trying to argue is that the test of a relationship is our ability to remove masks, to open up, to express deep feelings. But there are occasions when one has to learn to hold back and not speak. At times, silence is what can save a relationship.
right.
I'd love to get everyone's reaction